Hello.
Hello. I had my thumb up trying to figure out if we were on or not.
I know. It's a regular occurrence for us, and we've normally got someone there going.
People would think I was professional.
We've normally got people counting us in.
I know.
But as you all know, if you've been watching this series, hello, it's a little pre-recorded series going out at not our usual time.
No.
So, yes, we're on
doing
our
Tilda.
own. We do all our bits on our own. I mean, why anyone thought that was a good idea, John, I don't know.
Well, I'm not going to discourage them. I think it's wonderful. The question is, do we tell Tash we've done it?
Wow.
Surprise!
Surprise, Tash. I've got to at some point because we've got to get someone techie to load it all up. So that involves a bill. She'll need to know. But to those of you who've not seen our little series, our little sideline, hello and welcome.
Hello.
John and I fell in love with the same project, didn't we, John?
Almost on the same day.
It really was. So I'd bookmarked something to talk to Natasha about, and wanted to do this
don't wait.
fabulous quilt. And then John, like an excited puppy, FaceTimed us and said, "You need to see this, it's amazing." And instantly I pulled it up on my computer and went, "It's here, it's in my bookmark list of things to do." For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's this little friend here. It's the embroidery flower quilt by Tilda.
Tilda, it's
Not my
amazing. And
pattern.
it's a free pattern.
Not your pattern.
No, tildaworld.com.
Yes.
Free pattern for their solids.
Absolutely.
Of which we have many.
Of which we do have
Many. And they're so beautiful.
They are so
I love
beautiful.
them.
The quality on these is fabulous,
Amazing.
isn't it? The shrinkage is far less than a
Much
normal
less.
plain, and the colour, the softness of the colour, and they blend beautifully with the Tilda prints, don't they?
But it's because she's chosen them, and
Yes.
the solids match perfectly with the prints as well. It's
Absolutely. So if ever you've been a Tilda fan and created this wonderful stash of patterns, and you think, "Oh, I order a plain and it's not quite right, the reds are too harsh, there's a lack of softness to the greens or whatever," these are what you need, the Tilda solids.
They really are beautiful.
We do have them by the half metre. Those of you who are very savvy and sharp-eyed, however, will have also purchased the kit that we've done for this, which was this here.
46 colours.
Absolutely,
Just
loads of
beautiful.
beautiful colours. For those of you who missed out, we are very sorry, but we
did
bought
do
the
our
last of the stock in the UK. So, yeah,
You did.
what you see
That's
aside
it.
from that here, that is what we have, and it takes a really long time to get these into the country,
Yeah.
much less for us to get them in and then be able to distribute them. So if you see these fabrics today and you think, "I want those,"
Don't
snap
hang
them
around.
up quick.
Just go into
Absolutely.
www.natashamakes.com.
Absolutely.
Type Tilda in the search box and they'll all pop up there.
They will indeed,
And
absolutely.
if you search it by price and just do lowest price first, they come up first. Just saying.
Oh, because they are
Just
the
saying.
basics range. I mean, it
I
seems
love the way they
insulting
call
to call
them
them that.
basics
I
because
know.
it is insulting.
Far from basic, but
Far
in
from.
Tilda's world,
It is.
they're her basics.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. But our series so far, John, we've been a bit busy, haven't we?
have.
So
We're almost there.
we are. We started out the series with episode 1, which was our cutting and organising.
My favourite episode.
Lots and lots of top tips. We showed you the beautiful bundle. We talked about the types of things you're going to need to really give this quilt a good go, the cutting implements, all the necessary necessaries.
And now that we're on this episode,
necessary accessories.
implementers.
Not the necessaries. I
But
quite
I
like that
word.
now.
I like that word.
The
But you would have
necessaries.
seen by the time you got to this point, the first episode for me was the most important because you've got to be so organised.
Yes.
And being able to have those bags separate and be able to pull the pieces out of each one, I hope it has made your life a lot easier.
This is not technically a difficult make.
It's not.
It is machining squares together.
It is. But you just literally, you're gluing them down onto a piece of fabric that holds it and then sewing in straight lines. It's brilliant.
It couldn't get more simplistic. However, it's a lot of squares. It's a
is.
lot of fabric cutting, and it's just making sure you're organised situation, isn't
Completely
it?
agree.
Absolutely. So episode 1 dealt with all of those issues for you and talked about getting yourself sorted,
Yep.
getting yourself organised. So we did that. Then we went away. And then we did episode 2. Now, episode 2 was talking about how we place all those beautiful colours and create these amazing panels, didn't it, John?
Yep.
And we had a couple of options, didn't we? Because traditional piecing's an option.
Of course, absolutely.
This was our little hack, wasn't
However,
it?
I'm, I don't know if I'm allowed to say, I'm a little bit lazier than that. I just want quicker. I don't have time. I've got about 900,000 quilts that have to be made before I die. So I've got to do everything a lot quicker. Hence this gorgeous Quilter's Grid, because it is an absolute gem of a product. I love it. Please, Alina, make it. Absolutely divine. Love it, love it, love it.
Very clever. And we showed how this is placed. And it's like playing with fuzzy felt, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got your base piece and you're there picking up your colours,
putting it down,
and placing them, and it was lovely. We had a right
Teflon
chat.
sheets at the Ray.
Yeah, absolutely. And then press it into place, and then it got machined.
Yep.
Machined
Up and down,
up the
up
way,
and down.
and down the way, and across the ways.
And
now we have this.
We've got our pieces to go
I
together.
think we need to go into overhead, John, just to
I
show
think we
people
do.
what they're
We
looking at
do.
here, because
But you're going to
does look a
forgive
little
me, this
strange.
has been pressed, okay? So if yours looks like this, don't worry, it has been pressed, and that's absolutely fine. You will end up with random strands all the way through. Do not go mad about it.
Nope.
So this is where we are now. Now when we flip this over, you'll be able to then see the joy of the quilter's grid, everything laying perfectly there. And as you remember, we then explained to you how you'll have things hanging a little bit over the edge here.
Yes.
We cut this a little bit wider on this side, and you'll see over here we started a little bit over on this side as well. So where we are doing this now, we need to go down and trim everything down to be able to make it a nice flat straight edge in order to then piece them all together. And that's going to be our show today, making a row and then sewing 2 rows together after that. I'm also going to give you some tips at which way is easier to pressing. For myself, I like pressing one way, one the other, because then when you feed it through the sewing machine to put the blocks together, you're then able to then nest those seams and get as close as you can. You have got to accept you may not hit every point. That's okay. If you're a fantastic sewer and you do hit every point, well done. Congratulations, that's wonderful. I'm not that sewer. I'm not that person. A lot of people aren't, and I know a lot of pressure is put on people for perfection, and with this you can get it perfect, and we will show you how, but I'm only going to do that if you accept the fact that if you don't get it right, you're not going to be unkind to yourself. It's fabric. It is fun. We are making
no one
something
else will see
beautiful,
it.
and even
No
you
one
will
else
not
will
see it once you put the whole thing together and you've quilted it and it's lying on your bed, on the wall, wherever. You will not notice it, honestly and truly. So be kind to yourself.
it is big,
please.
it is beautiful,
And it's so pretty.
and yeah,
I love it.
better done than perfect.
Exactly, better
isn't
finished
it?
than perfect.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
as you'll see over here, this is the
Should we have
edging.
a little
overhead edge
again?
moment, please,
There we
ma'am.
go.
As you'll see over here, this is the edge of the blocks over here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to follow this line on the back here. You'll see on the quilter's grid, if I move my hand up, you'll see that the line is just there. So I'm going to cut all the way down this row on that line. Now we've cut strips of fabric, and these fabrics are a little bit over. What I would say to you is, if you haven't used strips of fabric and you've got fabric going over, please go back to your pattern and double check what page the block you're on. The block you have done, what page it's on, and just double check everything's the right color, everything's in the right place, that you haven't perhaps missed a block out.
Sure.
This is the point to figure it out, and if you have, we can sort it out. I promise we will make it work. So I have pressed all of my seams. Sorry, I'm jumping around with this. So what I'll do is I'll cut it first, and then I'll show you how I've pressed everything to make my life a little easier.
Lovely.
Now with this, I'm taking it slowly because there's a lot of seams, there's a lot of bulk, and as I press down here, my line here is perfect, lined up, but over here it's about 1/8 of an inch in. So all I'm doing is I'm keeping my hand really firm down on my Creative Grids 24 by 6.5 inch ruler, and I'm just pulling this out so that the line that I'm going to be cutting on is perfectly aligned with the edge of my ruler. And I'm not doing huge portions. I'm not doing the whole row because
No.
my ruler's firstly not long enough, but equally I know I'm going to have to do this in stages, and I'd rather just take my time and do 4 or 5 blocks at a time in order to get it perfect. So that one's lined up, this one's lined up, that one's okay, that one's okay, that one's okay, and that one's okay, and I'm going to stop at that one. So this one I'm only doing 8 inches, so I'm going up, going up, going up, going up, going up, and I'm there. And I just put my blade down, so this bit is cut off. And all I'm
Lovely.
doing now is moving my ruler up, moving my piece a little bit towards me, and doing exactly the same thing, pressing my ruler down because you've got these seams here that need to be pressed down, and I'm just gently taking my time pulling these apart to
And
get
this-
everything lined up perfectly.
This does go against everything.
It
you
does.
think
It
of
goes
when you're-
against absolutely everything.
When you're quilting, you wouldn't normally be pulling blocks this
No,
way and that and stretching things.
not at
and
all.
It's just the nature of the quilter's grid that you've worked onto here that you
Exactly.
can manipulate.
And look, quilter's grid, it is still a fabric. It is only
Sure.
an interfacing. You can stretch it. If you have now at this point, you've done it and you've used your iron and you've actually ironed rather than pressing, you will notice that things have distorted a little bit. That's absolutely fine. You can easily solve it. It takes a little bit of manipulation, but what we do is we can just take it slowly, little bit by little bit, and you can see I perfectly lined that up there. Just this top bit over here is wiggled a little bit, so I just give this bit a tiniest of tugs, and there we go. I'm lined back up again. It literally was a hair's breadth, and I'm completely lined up now. And just triple check that you've got everything lined, and you just trim that all off. And you can see I'm just getting rid of that tiny bit there. We've got a little box here for all our leftover interfacing. And now I have a nice clean edge on the edge of my block 1 in order to sew onto my block 2.
Isn't that satisfying?
Now I'm not cutting this side just yet,
Okay.
only because I square this up at the very end, because I don't want to be messing everything around now.
So John,
I clear this up at the
this
end.
side, just to be clear, is the edge of the quilt.
Correct. So if you look at your pattern, you'll see over here we are doing this section just there.
Sure.
So the edge I'm not cutting off here is the edge of the quilt over here.
So the edge that you're trimming is the one
Is
that's
the
going
edge
to
we're going
join
to be sewing
to
onto
another
number
panel.
2.
Perfect.
Now, just for the sake of simplicity, what I have already done is over here we've got block number 2 and block number 3.
So for the
Okay.
purposes of everyone who's watching who might not know, you go block 1, block 2, block 3, and then it's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
So those three are
These
the
are the
top
three, the top row. And what I've done now is I've cut this line off completely square. And you'll see here I haven't quite cut this one off yet, which I'll do at the end. These 2 seams, however, I have cut. And what I've done is you'll see I've put a pin in every single one of these seams. That is a guide. It is the hope that I will manage to get it. The pins that I'm using today, I forget the name of them, but it's the ones that you can iron over them, the Taylor ones. They are just beautiful. They're really, really fine. I never recommend stitching over a pin. Never. They break, it just hits it, even no matter how thin the pin is. I just don't recommend it, because if you do hurt yourself, it's going to be in an eye, and don't do it. If you do, that's your choice, but I just don't think you should. These ones are incredibly fine, so if you do want to go over one, this is one that you do, but I personally prefer not to.
We'd still whip them out.
Exactly, just whip it out before you get there. But the good thing with this is if you press this and get it ready, and you realize, oops, my seam's gone, and you need to iron it, these are heat resistant. So you can then iron straight over that and not have any problems with your pins. So what I've done over here, when I was talking to you about pressing, is if we could do the overhead,
Sure,
Gemma.
of course we can.
With this, you'll see that this is now my block number 1, and you'll notice that I pressed everything up, okay? Oh, I thought I pressed this down. Right, don't do as I
Famous
do. I
last
thought I'd done
words.
this. What you're going to do here is you're going to press your seams down so that they nest. Numbers 2 and 3 are perfect, however, because you'll see that number 2, which is the bottom one, I've pressed up, but number 3 I pressed down, because then when you try and nest these together, when you go through the sewing machine, it's a lot easier to be able to do it that way. Now, forgive me doing this out of order, but I've got 2 and 3 already lined up. I'm not trimming the edge of number 3, because like the side edge of number 1, this is the edge of my quilt, and I will cut that at the very end when I've got the whole quilt made. And all I'm going to do now is, just like how we've sewn all these lines down here, I'm simply going to line this up, and I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch down the seam using my sewing machine and lining it up exactly as I had it before. And whilst I do this, the lovely Gemma is going to entertain you with lots of lovely stories and things,
Well, of course.
so that you won't be bored.
No one's bored. It's hypnotic watching someone else sew, you know.
I have to say, I do
That's
think
how it is.
Sorry to interrupt, one thing more. I do always, when I'm doing these blocks together, there's a lot of weight on them. I do always do a back stitch. On a normal piecing, I don't, but because the quilter's grid does put a bit of weight on it, and I am hanging it off the edge of a table, I just prefer to have that little extra
This is
stability
quite a
on it.
big quilt when it's finished as
really
well, isn't it, John? You know, this is
63.5 by 81.5 when it's finished.
It's a beautiful
And
quilt.
that's, of course, if you don't fiddle around and create your own gorgeous borders.
Which there are many viewers
so
who
many
have
options.
asked us about adding borders and have said which of the many beautiful Tilda solids would be the best to add a
Well,
border. And that is
your choice.
the endless question, isn't it,
Well,
John?
the thing with this kit that you've provided is your kit is colossal. You've got so much fabric. And the interesting thing is you actually provide, you will be short some colours, but you've probably got most of your colours. You'll have enough to make 2 quilt tops, but you will need to top up obviously with background fabric and then 2 or 3 of the colours on the inside, because your kits were so generous.
You've definitely got enough there to make yourself cushions.
Absolutely.
Perhaps do some scrappy binding should you
But what
wish.
I thought was really interesting is the quilt behind us is Tracy Perks's bug quilt.
Yes.
These Tilda solids, can you imagine using the Tilda solids
Absolutely.
to create a multicoloured back over here? That would be gorgeous.
Would be really beautiful. And Tracy's patterns, they run on a very similar premise to this, and they're quilters grid friendly also, because where this one is all squares, Tracy's patterns are squares and half square triangles. So again, beginner friendly and creating something really impactful without actually having to adopt a load of really complicated skills there, John.
Yep.
So actually I'm going to show everyone a pattern of Tracy's just while you're machining, because I do rather love them.
They are very good.
A clever lady. Here we go. Oh, John's machining away. So Tracy's patterns, for those of you who've not seen one before, like I say, they're all based on squares and half square triangles. Beautifully photographed so that you get a visual of your final quilt and what we're aiming for. You will also then have fabulous grid, really lovely detailed instructions on how much fabric you're going to need, the cutting, the guide on how to make your half square triangles if you are a complete beginner and you need to know how to do that. And then this is what I really love, John.
Love.
Row by row by row, exactly what you're putting together.
My favourite bit about her patterns is the little tick mark over there.
I know.
I love it.
Because with the best will in the world, especially when you're new to quilting, just keeping tabs on where you've got to, that's a thing.
Oh, it's
John.
awful. I find it really overwhelming doing that.
So with all of Tracy's patterns, we are showing you these on our Tilda series just simply because they are so relevant to what we're doing here.
With the quilter's grid.
You could use the quilter's grid or you can just piece, but they are all beginner friendly, squares, half square triangles. We will be having kits available. There is a kit for the darling bug. So just swing around to the Tracy Perks section of the website.
And if necessary, just type in Tracy without me on the website and it all pops in.
Absolutely.
As Gemma was doing that, I was terribly unprofessional going like this because as I opened this up, I won't deny I might start using pins more often because I hit every single point. Beautiful. And I'm very happy. It never happens in my world. I know people assume, oh, everything's perfect. It's not.
So we will accredit this to not only your fabulous sewing abilities,
luck,
but pins,
pinning. Patience and taking time.
Having these lines and having this structure here.
Now, of course, we're going to do the last seam because we've done number 1. We've trimmed this one off. What I'm going to do is exactly what I did there before to trim. This one I'm going to trim down so that I can attach these on there.
So we can have a little peek.
Now, you could, if you wanted to, if you didn't want to trim this down, you could lay this on top and then make that be your guide. I think that's a little bit messy, and as a long arm quilter, the less behind your fabric, the better for me. So I'm going to trim this off, and I'm going to make sure I get number 1 out the way, because the last thing you want to be doing is chopping your quilt in half. And trust me, I have done it once before.
There would be tears, and I suspect there might be some very stern words.
I had a client quilt, and I'd accident, because anyway, we'll leave that there. It's
so
only ever happened the once. It won't ever happen
again. While you're cutting,
again.
John, in the same way as you did before, I'm just going to say, for those of you who are new to quilting, who perhaps are saying, long arm quilting is a thing. It's not necessarily a thing that we do in our own homes here in this country. In America,
why don't you have a spare 15-foot wall in order to put it on?
In America, I know a lot of my American friends, they are more likely to have a long arm quilting machine just because, as you say, they have bigger houses, they have more space.
Exactly.
It's a huge thing in America, quilting.
I had to go and rent an office when I bought mine because the largest room in my house was only 10 foot wide.
Well, quite.
So, and that is, mine was quite a nice big house at that point.
Yes.
So all I'm doing exactly as before, just trimming off the excess there, taking your time, and Gemma's going to chat away.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So a long arm quilting machine, it's vast. It's a huge piece of equipment. But when you've made a quilt of this size, should you wish, you can, or a quilt of any size, you could send a little quilt off to be long arm, couldn't you, John? You can pass this to someone like your good self.
I will say, I've quilted one of these already.
Oh, you have.
I take my hat, everything that I don't know how to finish that sentence without being banned on Facebook, but I take my hat off to anybody who tries to put this through a machine. Not because it's difficult, but because it is so huge and it is so amazing. The last thing you'd want to do is to end up with a big pleat in it for any reason.
Sure.
So for myself, I would definitely be sending it off to a long arm because it's such a statement piece. Now, just like before, I'm lining these all up and I'm just going to pin these together. I had such good luck with the pins the last time.
Let's go into close-up actually, John.
Oh goodness, so you can have full proper evidence of me using pins.
Absolutely. I'm going to do that.
I'm lining up the point where these two meet over here.
And this is where you were saying to press one panel up
because I
and
very
one
cleverly
down.
have now printed them that way, which is not what you should be doing.
Not
but
ideal.
Unfortunately, it's a bit late now because everything's sewn together. You could, if you wanted to, twist these seams. Not going to be any problem with that at all. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to line everything up. And literally on every single seam, what I would do, especially if you printed your, you've pushed your seams the same way, if you put the pin in that way, you can see just there, hopefully.
You want it to go through your stitch line.
You're going through your stitch line on both sides, and then just pull that down so that it comes through on the stitch side, the other side as well.
Perfect, John.
At the point of doing this, there is a strong possibility that you're going to find that things don't line up. The reasons that is your seam allowance may have been ever so slightly different. When you were pressing, perhaps you got a little bit more rigorous with this section than that section. There is no problem with that. You are going to be kind to yourself.
Yes.
And if it doesn't line up perfectly, on the whole, the quilt will.
Yes.
In certain individual sections, they may not. Remember, when you see a flower in the wilderness, even the most beautiful flower in the world, it's not perfect if you want to be critical of every petal.
Yes.
But as a whole, it is beautiful. And I think we are very, very critical of our own work. So just take your time and remember this is fun. And look how beautiful it is when you're finished.
And the quilter's grid is very forgiving.
Very,
very forgiving when you piece this together. So you're just pinning all of those individual points.
Every single seam that is going to come together, I'm going to do my best to try and catch each seam. But again, if you miss it, that's absolutely fine. And it is possible that you've got a little bit of leeway between them, but we're not talking 2 inches. And if you are, you've left a block out. And Bondaweb is your friend. Plique it on, Bondaweb it on. There is always a solution. Just never be discouraged.
And if you are getting yourself even slightly concerned, worried, or in a tears, reach out to us. You know, send us a message.
You can't get me off the book of faces, so by all means, send messages.
You are pretty hardcore social media presence.
I love my social media.
You do.
It's just because I think the best thing about quilting is the people you quilt with.
Yeah.
And I've been so lucky to meet some of the most incredible people in this community. And to be able to sew with them, and you know, people always they always say things like, "I'm so inspired by what you do," and I'm like, "What? Me? What?"
I make stuff.
I know.
I make stuff, and I show everyone, and I hope everyone will like it.
And they do. Well, some people do, some people don't, and that's okay. But it's just such fun, and you just you get to enjoy it a lot more. Now, what's interesting here is you'll see
where are we going? Overhead or close up?
Let's do close up.
There we go.
Over here, when I line my seams up, you'll see that I'm going to be slightly out there. So this is, and I wanted to show you that on purpose because I guarantee you one of your seams will be out there. And if I flip this round, I can see over here my seam allowance is ever so slightly out. So the good thing about doing that is you can see there's my line over there.
You can.
I'm ever so slightly out on my seam allowance. So I show people that and tell people to look at that, not to criticize yourself, but just to recognize, okay, I was a bit out on that seam. And you've then just got to let it go and go from there. Now, all of these are going in the same direction. So what I'm going to do is to make my life easier is I'm going to fold them so that they're going through the sewing machine like that. And when I get to this one over here, which I know I've got that little bubble over there, what I'll do is I'll talk you through it as I get there, but I'm going to stitch on till about there, and then I'm going to give the top a bit of a yank, and what will happen is the bottom bit over here will be eaten up by the feed dogs.
Sure.
And then fingers crossed, by the time I get to there, it'll be fine. If not, by the time I get to there, the stitch will be absolutely fine. So I'm expecting to miss this point, and I'm okay with that because I just missed my seam allowance on the other side.
So John, if you do have a baggy bit per se, then
always put it on the feed dog side.
The loose part should be to the bottom.
Yes.
And that was one of the top tips that Jane gave me actually, really, long time ago. because I was in a right old tears. I said, look, it's pinned together and this bit's baggy. She went, just put that bit to the bottom and let the feed dog sort it out.
Now I'm going in. Hold breath.
He's
Hold your
going
breath.
in.
Going in. Right, what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, quite.
Gemma, entertain everybody.
I've gone close up. Everyone can see your stitching,
Oh,
John.
lovely.
No pressure.
Lovely.
No pressure at all.
Now you'll see, I'm glad we're on close up. I'll move my baggy hand out the way. Over here is where the needle, the pin is just there, and you can see my needle is just here, my pin, but my pin is now under the foot. It's that point that I take the pin out.
Because everything's
held together by the foot.
Yeah, brilliant.
So there's probably about a millimeter. Oh, I went over the pin there. Try not to go over it if you can. I always try and take the pin out there. Now this is the one that's wobbly.
Yes.
So I know this is wobbly. So I'm going to take that pin out and I'm going to hold with great affection over here. And you'll see I'm just gently dragging it down and we'll see it's the third seam down with the yellow. Okay?
Okay. We will bear that in mind, John, and we will scrutinise more closely.
But it's just it's important to kind of recognise if you've made a small little error somewhere, figure out why you have, because I think it's important, because when you know you've made an error, you know what it is, and that way then you can not do it again.
Absolutely.
But only if you're going to be kind to yourself, because I don't suggest you unpick anything. You're just going to accept, like a flower in the universe, it is not perfect.
And you know, a lot of the time when we unpick, I mean, Jane's always said to me, if you're going to unpick, you do it once.
Exactly. Oh, because you distort the fabric too much.
Yeah. Do not unpick more than once, because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, and you will regret it.
It's just easier to cut a new piece of fabric.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, like you say, just make peace with it. If it's something minuscule in a large piece.
And do you know, Jenny Raymond gave me the best advice ever.
I love Jenny
And that is, if your point doesn't meet when you finish quilting it, get yourself a button.
Yes.
Because everybody's going to look at your beautiful button, not the fact that your point doesn't meet.
Absolutely. I love a covered button for that.
Exactly.
If I'm making a table runner, I quite like covered buttons on there anyway. Or cushions. I love a covered button on a cushion. And if you do have something with some complicated points,
any decoration or anything like that hides a multitude of sins.
Sure.
Puts lots of glossy sparkle on.
Absolutely.
And you're done. Now, can I just do this before we go any further, Gemma? If we go onto the wide lens, if you grab that end and I grab this end, we have a third of a quilt.
We do. Row number 1.
Isn't that amazing? I love that. I think that is really pretty.
Amazing.
And dum dum dum. Oh my.
Hey, John.
Hang on, let's find the seam. This is the problem. You can't find the seam.
1, 2, 3. No, you can't.
It's this one here.
It's here.
That's the seam there.
1,
Go
2,
on, Gemma.
3.
You look.
There it is.
There. That
John.
one.
It's bob on, John. It is as well. Shall we prove it?
We can.
Should we go into overhead to prove it?
So the good thing with that is you can see this is the seam that I was trying to do over here. No, it isn't. It's this one over here. But you can see that's lined up absolutely perfectly.
It has.
Because I've been able to let the feed dogs do the work for you.
Amazing.
So now...
Bravo, John.
If we go to an overhead... to the,
Weird. Oh, wide.
So, in your imaginations, we finished this one as well. Oh, it's upside down, isn't it? It is.
It is. We've got to make sure we're right. And actually, that's a really, really good point, John, because everyone's thinking, what if I don't remember which panel's which?
Look at the diagrams.
Well,
they
but
are
you did
so
say
beautiful.
Pop on the back of it, on the quilter's grid, just pop 1 and top,
Just
2
a tip.
top, whatever.
Because
Yeah.
do it on the first block. In the block. Not on the edge. Can you see what I did? You cut
Chopped it off, haven't you?
Cut it off.
Yeah.
So do it on the first block. That'll be a lot easier. So that's
But
perfect.
just for the interest of showing everybody, should we go overhead with it?
We do it there. I
Okay,
think
we'll
we
do it
can
way
get
up
it.
and then we can see.
Hopefully.
There we are. So this will be upside down to our camera, but it works for what we're seeing here.
So you can see these two flowers over here.
Is this one?
Are these two flowers over here.
This one is here.
And then this blob bit here
Yep.
is that blob bit there. And then these little tentacles over here are these little tentacles over there. Okay, so that's numbers
So
1,
then
2, and 3.
this next row is what John and I will be wafting now. Here we go, look.
Let's see how we're going on that one.
Perfect.
So over here, you can see we've got this little orange section over here, which is there. That is our block 4 over there. And then block 5 is this beautiful big flower over here.
Lovely.
And then block 6 is this beautiful section over here with your two big flowers over there.
Lovely.
So it's important at this stage to take your pattern, because it is something so pixelated, it is very easy to put these on the wrong way round.
So easy.
Very,
Upside
very
down.
easy.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine after all
And
that
as much
work?
as we said, be kind to yourself and
I
just
think that's
accept the
something
errors.
you can't quite hide.
And upside down is not a thing, is it?
Exactly. Now, in order to get prepped and ready, I have trimmed off the 4, 5 and 6 top line, but that is done exactly the same way. Now, Gemma, remind me, the top is the closest to the
Machine.
The machine.
Yeah.
But what I haven't done is obviously cut off the bottom bit, and you can see because I've got little bits left over of the quilter's grid over here.
Sure.
And this is of 2, 3 and 4. Now, what I want, sorry, 1, 2 and 3. But what I wanted to do was to show you that if, like me, you're not trimming everything off in one go, how it is you then do this on a larger scale all the way along.
Marvellous. It's here.
Thank you, Bab.
I moved it. I moved it because I knew it would get lost, John.
Right. Now, again, just like when we did it the sideways, you simply just take your time, lead your hands along it and trim everything down over here. This one has already been trimmed, so I'm only trimming one piece. And if you want to be ambitious, you can actually line everything up in one go, which is what I would do in my own studio. So you know what? 3, 2, 1, we're done.
But similarly, if yours is a little bit more twiddly than that,
you do it how
little bit
you
by
feel
little
comfortable
bit.
with. I do this
Sure.
all the time. So number 2 is already lined up. And number 3, oh, there's only a tiny slither on number 2 to take off. I think you can see on the camera, you've only got a tiny little bit there.
It's a whisker, isn't it?
It's just a hint of it. Just a hint.
Just a wisp. A mere wisp.
Oh my goodness, I've never had that it lines up almost perfectly. That is unheard
Are we feeling
of.
smug, John? A bit
No,
smug.
it's pure luck. That is not smugness by any means. It's pure
No,
luck.
but luck can
But
still
what I did
result in
do on the end
smugness.
here is I didn't quite go square on the end there, so
Okay.
I just trim off the last block there.
Lovely.
Now, when you come to the pressing of these, just like when we were putting the blocks together, so this is the bottom of, because you pop your hand there, this is
Sure.
the bottom of number 3, so I know that that is going to the top of number 6 over here. So when you're doing this, these, if you press all your seams one way on one, so going this way, and then all your seams going this way on the other, it'll make your life a lot easier.
Sure.
And you can see these are already leading that way, these are already leading that way, and now we just do exactly what we did before. But what I am going to do is I'm going to get Gemma to get the pattern
Sure.
and just double check these first blocks over here. So we are looking at the section over here. So it's the top of this section over here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that colour there.
Hang on, John.
And I have got this the wrong way
I was
round.
gonna say,
Oh no, we're
this
looking at
one.
1 and 2.
You're here.
You see, this
You're
is
here
why we
and
pay.
here.
This is why there's 2 of us. So we're approaching numbers 1 and 4. My apologies. So you've got
that's fine.
4 over here, and the little blue, 1 and the red. So I know that this is correct for number 4.
It's allowing me to feel helpful, that's all.
You're always helpful, but it's important to triple check, because
Sure.
the last thing you want to do is pin this on incorrectly. So when I know that this is correct, and I've counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pink, yellow, pink, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, orange, yellow, pink, got
Yep.
my colours wrong there. I know that's right, so then I fold these together, right sides together, and I know I'm going to then flip my stitches, flip my seams all the
Sure.
way along. Now, the seams that might be out the most are these, and that's okay. So I would strongly advise you at this point, if you are going to not use pins, to take your time even more so. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin half of this at least. I think it's just easier making sure that everything is pinned. But if you don't want to, just take your time and do it nice and slowly. And if me, who's an anti-pin person at the best of times, is saying use pins,
Sure.
I would suggest that. You do
When
get
you've
a
taken the
cleaner
time
finish.
to cut this many squares and piece all of this,
Just
whether it
taking
be
that
with
extra
quilter's grid or the
15
traditional
minutes.
way.
Yeah.
just a few minutes taken to pop some pins in, being careful not to poke yourself with the pins.
Are you referring to the moment earlier where one went up to the quick of my nail? Yes.
You did ever so well, John. We're very brave. But just take a few moments to get those pins in, because in the lifetime of the quilt, and this is one of those quilts that you keep hold of for a lifetime, isn't it?
You would, definitely.
What is a few minutes on some pins? And the pins that you're using here, the Taylor Seville, they are lovely. They're very fine. They go in beautifully. There's no, do you know, John, I picked up some different pins not all that long ago. Just because I'd got them in my pin cushion, and I'd already got my Taylor Seville in another quilt, and I was like, oh, I'm just making this thing here. It's really quick. Bosh. And I'm pulling my fabric. These aren't old pins. These are new ones that I got as a gift, and they were pretty, and so I put them in a pin cushion to look decorative. But I love my Taylor Seville pins. And it just made me realise why I buy my Taylor Seville pins. But for those of you who've not had them before, they will periodically go out of stock. It's because they're a product that's really difficult to get into the country.
Well, it's because they're so
when
popular.
they come back in, sure. When they come back in, we restock them. Get them when you can. We have patchwork pins, we have quilting pins. We also have new applique pins, the little yellow top. They're in fine and extra fine. They're amazing. So a little investment in something like this, they're a game changer.
They really
when
are.
you're quilting, for sure. Look,
Slowly
something
take
quite
shape.
satisfying about some pinned seams. I love it.
Now on this one I am noticing, now remember 3 or 4 people have made this quilt. It is a sample, so I am expecting there to be a few little wobbles. And as we look at the top of this quilt over here, you'll see I've got a couple of wobbles over here. Now that is because this seam, and I can tell you right now, this seam is bigger than this seam over there.
Yes.
This seam's skinnier. That's absolutely fine. Knowing why it is important, as I've said, because you won't do it again.
Yes.
But on this situation, it's absolutely fine, because the one that has got the wobbles is already going on the bottom.
Yes.
Because the feed dog will then help you as you go.
The baggier one at the bottom.
Exactly.
And we talked about this in one of our previous shows, didn't we, John? Is that when you are piecing a quilt, A, ideally the same person should machine this. B, it should ideally be done on the same machine.
Yep.
And in the case of this particular quilt, it's been collaborative.
It has.
Some of it's been done over at your place, on your machines.
I think we should
There's
time
been
share
some
it.
done here. You know, Jane's sewn some, Natasha's sewn
I think
some.
everybody who's had a spare minute's had a go.
Izzy's been working on it. We've all had
It's
a
been
go at this.
brilliant.
And we said, actually, we know because of all the variables here, different machines and different hands on it, we know that we're going to have potentially some bagging here and there.
And
But this was a
fine.
decision we made because
But equally,
you need to see how
I
to
don't
fix
think it's
that.
a problem though,
No.
because as you saw when I was doing that for the, and what I might do is, you can see that the 4 of those blocks have got a wobble. So what I might do is I might just say, well, that's perfect and that's perfect. I'm going to take all those pins out. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Let those fall where
And
they
let
fall.
those fall where they fall. Because I think you can overthink this, because from there to there, it's absolutely perfect. You
Sure.
can see no seams at all. So fine, you've got 4 little seams that are out. Well, is that all right with you?
Are you?
Is that all right with you?
Not first. Oh, I'm just thinking, I bet you if you'd have kept those pins in and gone through like you did on
Nah,
your first one,
can't be
that
on.
was quite out, wasn't it?
It'll be fine.
That other one was quite out.
It
and
was.
It came through beautifully with those feed dogs. Clever,
Exactly.
clever stuff.
But it's a case, I think it's, if you do notice that there's a lump of them and then it comes good again, just let them fall where they fall.
Sure.
But be
Sure.
kind to yourself.
This quilt is busy enough
It is.
and impactful enough that little tiny details like some points missed here and there,
Exactly.
it's not going to shout
And I
at
can
you.
promise you, when you've quilted it and it's bound,
Oh,
you are not
absolutely.
going to notice it at all. You really aren't.
No, you're not. You're not. Oh, it's a beautiful thing, John, this.
It really is. And after we've done these 6, so you can then be able to see. Now the method that we're using is identical for rows 2 and 3. We're not going to have time to show you the whole thing today, but we have
No.
another video coming up with Natasha's,
We
with the, oh well, yeah, we're going to
We've
have to
got
tell her, aren't we? 'Cause
Another
she's going to
episode,
come and do that one.
yeah. We've got another episode with you and me when we'll talk about sandwiching it and all of that as well. So yeah, it's all going on.
So we're not going to
John.
tell
All
Tash?
going on. No, we
We're
have
just going
to
to do
tell
it
Tash.
ourselves.
Well, I have to tell Tash. So we've got our backing our quilt, haven't we? We'll talk about sandwiching and backing the quilt. We've got to
Of
make your
course,
backing.
of course.
And then we'll let her come in.
Because
She
the
can swoop
backing
in at the
option
last
on
minute.
this,
Sure.
it's lovely.
More than one backing option. So if you do know that there's a particular fabric you love, and Tilda, they have backing fabrics.
Oh, she's got some beautiful backing fabrics.
But you could go with a completely different backing fabric. You could get some of the Tilda solids and you could choose your favourite colours. You could make your own version on the back. You could do something quite impactful. You could piece and make your own backing.
Exactly.
Or you could follow in the pattern what John will demo for you, which is the pieced backing that they recommend too.
But you know what I love about that?
Many options.
You've got so many colour choices to be able to do, because I like their colour choices that they've suggested, but we'll talk about more of this when we do the next show.
Next episode.
But my goodness, there are so many colours. So again, I've got a little section over here that's going to be a little bit out, so I'm fine to just lose those where they go.
Okay.
Are we ready?
We are, John. We're ready. We're ready.
Wrong?
Should we go close up?
Oh, yeah. In for a penny, in for a pound.
In for a penny, in for a pound, hey?
We can do this. Right.
Oh, John, this has been such a pleasure.
I've loved this.
We both love Tilda so much. And also, it has to be said, the fabrics, you know...
Could I have a small pair of scissors, please, ma'am?
Oh, of course you can.
The hang on.
fabrics are beautiful.
Nope.
She says, I'll look for a small pair of scissors.
Just need to trim this off. There's a tiny little bit of fluff on the end.
Sorry, everybody. Big pair of scissors. I know, huge pair of scissors. Sorry.
I asked for a pair of scissors, not a chainsaw.
Oh, shush. But the fabrics are beautiful. The patterns are beautiful. We are Tilda fans. We've also had a look at some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful books. Stunning books. Fabulous books. So it's all been
Those books are amazing.
It's been a lovely time we've had, you and I.
It really is.
Exploring all things Tilda.
We're not done yet.
No.
Do you know what? Jenny Doan said this once. We've been threading our machines for years, but we haven't seen the hole for at least 10.
Oh, no.
Right. Now, remember, kindness.
Kindness, John.
Right.
Always, always.
You can do this, John. You can do this. I might need to put that on there. It's a heavy old... No, it's good. It's all good. Because if something goes wrung with an inanimate object, that's all right then.
No, I don't want the blame.
Right, we can do this. We're going in. I am doing a back stitch just to keep it going.
No, the thing about Tilda, though, is that everything is beautiful. I use that word a lot in this series. But it's true.
Do you know what I'm so glad of? Is you're here to remind me of what we're doing. Because I'm so scatterbrained. I'm like pretty things,
no, you've got to do a backing on the next show, John. Backing and put it together, and then you can quilt it.
I'm so glad you're here.
John. It's almost like you've forgotten how to make a quilt, dear.
Well, it's because I'm so distracted by the beautifulness of it all.
I know.
But I do think that this quilt is one of those quilts, given so many of us have made it, we should do it as a timeshare quilt. Oh!
You're throwing things on the floor now.
Luckily, I won't need the rotary cutter again, but please
wander around and pick up the rotary cutter, just in case anyone comes along.
Because so many of us have done stuff on it, it'll be nice to kind of use it. Now, at this point, we're now at the point of my little wobble. So all I'm doing now is I'm anchoring my hand on the section over here, which meets perfectly. And I'm just now going to give that a gentle pull, not stretching it, and letting the feed dogs do the work for me. You might need to move that ruler as well, please, before I throw that on the roll.
Sorry for those of you, just got a lovely close-up of my face.
Do you know what? I think we actually...
Has it been kind to you, John?
I think we've got right back on track.
Very good.
I might need you to pop your hand there if you don't mind. Thank you.
As much as I didn't want the
Now, when you do this, I'm 99% sure most of you will not be doing this standing up.
No.
With an audience.
Quite.
And if you do...
Whilst talking.
Oh, I love it, I love it, I love it.
So do I. It's fabulous.
But it's at this point now that you actually can take a moment and realise just how beautiful this quilt is.
It is
I think
gorgeous.
after this one seam, you do actually get to the point where you're like, oh my goodness, look what I've made. A little bit more, thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
My South African colloquialisms coming out again.
They do, and sometimes they're just full-on words I don't even know.
Well, we had this conversation earlier.
Yes, we did.
Now, at this little bit here, I have got a little bit more fabric to get in than I expected, so I'm just taking out my next seam. Just give it a little bit of a tug over here. And there we go. That should now sort itself out. There
Lovely.
we go. And we're almost there. There we go.
And this is a slow and steady won the race process, isn't it? Just taking that little bit of time to make sure those seem to go together beautifully.
And there we go. And we're back on track.
Marvellous.
Ow.
Oh, don't ow at me. I don't have time for a health and safety situation here, John.
Ow.
My word. It's a
I don't use
liability, I
pins.
tell you.
It's because I don't use pins and I've got them pointing out the other way.
You and Tash both. Now, Jane is a pins fan.
Oh, she's fabulous with her
She's a
pins.
precise person, isn't she? Tash, we always say, is a whirlwind, and she gets everything done at top speed. Boom.
Yep.
So she has no time for pins. In fact, I know whether
think,
a
to be
project
fair-
needs pins by observing whether Natasha uses them.
Well,
Because if
me
she
too.
uses them,
Me
they
too.
need to be used. And you're the same. So if you or Tash use some pins,
Use some pins.
use some pins.
You just get
Absolutely.
that cleaner finish.
And I think if you
Ooh.
did bash this one through with no pins,
Well, you can.
you can, but you'd probably feel
I'm just
a bit...
not going to risk it. Ooh.
You'd probably wish you'd spent the time, wouldn't you?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like I say, this should hopefully last a lifetime, and you've got a long time to look at it going, yeah, I could have spent a couple of
Right,
minutes spinning
There's
that.
only 5 more inches to go, boys and girls.
Marvellous.
3.
Hardly dare look, John. It's exciting.
We'll let them look first.
Which is, yeah.
Let them
Let's
look
just work
first.
out which is the way up.
That's it.
There it is.
3, 2, 1. High as you go.
Look at
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Oh my gosh. it's
That is
coming
amazing.
together.
Now you'll see we have got a little bit here of a ripple. Once you've given that a good old press,
Yes.
you will be absolutely fine.
Yes.
But that is 2/3 of our Tilda quilt made.
So that's block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the
Exactly.
next 3, you'll
You do
piece the
exactly
3
what
in the
we've done
row,
before.
and
You-
then you'll join them exactly
Exactly.
the same way, and you'll have 9 blocks.
Isn't that just
And you'll
gorgeous?
have a quilt top.
Can we go to the
An
overhead?
actual quilt top.
And I think the overhead here, what's so important to show you is, as you're going along, you can see all the points here meet perfectly. I do veer off a little bit here. You remember we had that first little section where we're ever so slightly out. But even that, I think you'll struggle to see that in the greater scheme of things. And just all the way through, it's just worked perfectly. And a good old press, getting that nice and flat.
A press makes all the difference.
And when you
does it
go on
not?
the back as well, you can see then that's where we are on the back. It's just perfect. I love it. And so effective.
The colours are just divine, aren't they? Absolutely stunning.
And it's when you get to this point that you realise just how awesome those 46 colours are. And just, oh, I love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Gorgeous.
So by the
Gorgeous,
next time
John.
we see you, when we're talking
Yes.
backings, we're hoping you'll have all 9 of your blocks done.
Yes, please.
Please make sure you're sharing this on social media. We haven't created a hashtag yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
So
and
you're going
we
to have to think
should.
of one.
Yes, I'll get SJ to pop one out when we
think
do
we
the whole
should.
series, when it all
Gemma
goes
and
to
John.
air.
Gemma and John and something like that.
Gemma and John do Tilda.
Oh, I am not playing that game. No, do not use Gemma and John do
Let's
Tilda.
not do that.
No, let's not do that. But if you do, I do want to see something funny with it as well.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine those pictures where they do? Oh, you remember that Facebook group where they load pictures up and they ask people to doctor them with funny things in?
No, I've not seen
It's
this.
one of the most funny. It's
Brilliant.
on Facebook. It's called
Okay.
Photoshop Adjuster or something.
Oh, okay.
But funny Photoshop or something
Sure.
on Facebook. And some of the things they come. There are some very clever people
Oh,
out there.
okay. So you get
So-
someone asleep or whatever, and
Exactly.
you ask them to put them
Put them
somewhere
exactly that.
ridiculous. Okay.
Exactly that.
Brilliant. That's really
I
clever.
love it. Carol Baskin's appeared a few times.
Oh gosh, I was I was at a event recently where someone came out dressed as Carol Baskin. I laughed so hard, and then Olive from On the Buses walked in, and then so did Hannibal Lecter, and the two of them looked just like them. I tell you, John, it was very
it's
very
funny.
disconcerting.
As you can tell, not all sewing all the time.
No, not always sewing, not all the
Love
time.
it.
Although I was hand stitching that weekend. Can't leave it alone. Can't leave it at home.
You can't.
We look forward to seeing these as you put them together.
Please, yes.
Please reach out to us if you need to. Even if you don't need to, if you just want to show us what you've been up to,
We
we
really
would
wanna
love,
see.
love, love to see. Like we said before, if you do want to add a border around your quilt and there's a colour that you love and you need any advice about how much fabric you should purchase or whatever, please just message us,
pleasure.
info@natashamakes.com, and we will help you.
One of the things I've seen done, which worked really, really well, is you'll need a little bit of extra quilter's grid as well.
Yes.
What my friend did is that they put a layer of the peacock,
Beautiful.
and then they put another layer here, but they alternated, and they went peacock, which is this colour, one of the light greys, peacock light grey, all the way down as a strip. Then they did another row of peacock, and then what they did is they did an entire run of their leftover colours over here. Then they did a layer of peacock, and then they did peacock dark grey, peacock dark grey, peacock dark grey, and it was beautiful.
That quilt must be huge, John.
It is.
Please bring that.
Of course,
at some point.
with pleasure.
I think
but he
that
went
needs
and
to
made
come.
pillows as well.
Yes.
Because the leftover pieces, because you end up
Beautiful.
with so many of these beautiful colours left over, being able to use them up, I think is really lovely.
Gorgeous. Well, our next show you'll be showing everyone their
For the
backing and talking about sandwiching and what have you. But then, we will, although we'll probably talk about more about that when we do the quilting show. And then we'll be doing our quilting show, and then it will be done. I mean, really?
Can't
really?
wait.
How's
Can't
this come
wait.
around? We are very excited. If you want to share on our Community Makes page, and it's not just this make, it might be another make. If you've made something else that's beautiful, knock it in there. It's great. So natashamakes.com, go to Community Makes and upload. That would be great.
And don't forget, if there's a colour you love,
Yes.
www.natashamakes.com.
We're not being unkind getting those back in.
You can't.
It
you
takes
can't.
forever.
It's so much. And also, that way then just type in Tilda in the search bar, and there is so much Tilda stuff on there.
Yes. And all the beautiful books as well.
Gorgeous.
And even if you're not making anything out of the books, they're the most gorgeous things to look at.
Exactly.
Oh, well, it's been
Brilliant.
lovely to have you
Well,
with us.
thank you again for a lovely couple of
Yes.
hours. This has been wonderful.
It's been great, John.
Can't
Love
wait.
it, love it, love it.
Right, we're going to go now because I've got to
Yes.
do number 7, 8 and 9.
Yes.
Bye.
Nice to see you. Be good. If you can't
Don't
be
mean
good,
to rush you, but be
crafty.
kind to yourself.
Yes, and
Remember.
be kind to yourself.
Big hugs, lots of love.
Take care. Bye.